Hi everyone. Let us now move on to a small chapter, data collection methods. We won't spend too much time and energy here because this is a largely operational topic. It's not a particularly concept heavy topic, right? So let's go forward. Mm. Right. So there are basically three broad methods of data collection. Face-to-face is number one, telephonic is number two, self-filled up is number three. Now, if you want to, if you love classifying things, then you could even break this up initially. One level before this, you can call it as there are administered questionnaires and self-administered questionnaires. And you can administer the questionnaire in a face-to-face fashion, or you can administer the questionnaire over the phone. Simple, right? And self-administered is what we are calling as self-filled up. Now, I can also talk about through a chat message. It's possible that I send a chat message, the person replies. I send another chat message, the person replies. Right? These kind of methods are not being followed today. There's no real point in it because existing methods of face-to-face and telephone take care of those requirements, and online self-filled up takes care of those requirements. There is also chatbot. You need not, send the chat messages. A chatbot can send us chat messages. There are some very interesting, path-breaking work being done in the area where a chatbot can do a survey, and based on the responses, using machine learning and artificial intelligence, can actually ask the appropriate follow-up question. It's not yet in widespread commercial use. Chatbots are in widespread commercial use in customer service, as we all know. Every one of us has gone to a website and, and a box appears and says, can I help you? What can I help you with? Some of it is just a plain, structure driven. Some of it is artificial intelligence driven. But it's not yet in widespread use in commercial market research. So for all practical purposes now, there is administered and self-administered. And within administered, there is face-to-face and telephonic. Okay, so far? Okay. Now, within face-to-face, there are various ways of face-to-face interview can be done. It can be done at the respondent's house. It can be done at the respondent's office. It can be done as a mall intercept interview. We'll come to this. Mall intercept or a street corner intercept, or the central location. So what are each of this? A house-to-house interview is a traditional method where an interviewer goes to the respondent's house, knocks on the door, person opens the door, and you introduce why you're there, and then goes in. If the respondent invites the interviewer goes and sits down and asks the questions, right? So that is house-to-house method. The same process in office. We fix an appointment, you go, you wait there in the reception. When the person calls you, and you go there and do the interview. What's a mall intercept? People are in the mall. You have certain people posted there, and they just walk up to people and say, "I'm just doing a survey. Can you give me a couple of minutes or 5 minutes or so on and so forth?" Now there are a couple of small variations here, but again, they're not in widespread commercial use, so we don't know how well they work. You can set up a survey kiosk, for example. Somebody could be coming to a mall, or somebody could be coming to The old days there would be these fairs, we used to call them. In my time, I don't know what they're called nowadays. There'll be a giant wheel, and there'll be some various other games, and there'll be some stalls for snacks. What is it called these days?
Exhibition.
Exhibitions and fairs. You can have a survey kiosk in those kind of exhibitions, and people coming in can be told, we're doing a survey, we'll reward you for the survey, and the person come in and fill up a survey. So, but they're not in widespread commercial use. It's doable, but it's not been happening in a big way. A mall intercept is when you actually intercept the person in the process of going about the shopping, and we do the interview. We can do the same thing in a street corner. There was a time this used to be done quite a bit. Today, if you haven't done these things, it may look impossible. It may look absurd. Somebody may say, why on earth would anyone stop and talk just because somebody approaches them for a survey? Somebody else may say, especially in today's era of people being, very touchy and prickly about privacy and intrusiveness and so forth, they may say, how on earth can a person dare to approach me and interrupt me when I'm going about my work? But the point is, they work. These methods work. There are people who are prepared to answer these kind of surveys. There are people who don't think of it as intrusive. It works. Okay. And the fifth method is central location. Invite a person to a central location. It could be a hall. It could be an office. It could be, a venue specifically set up for a survey purpose. And then you make the person comfortable and you administer whatever survey it is. So basically 5 broad methods of face-to-face interviewing. But we also keep in mind that face-to-face need not be in person as you and I are talking today. Face-to-face can also be over the video, as in the people who are sitting close to the other side of the camera here. It's also face-to-face, right? And video call-based interviews, ever since COVID came in, video call-based interviews have really picked up as a methodology, right? So face-to-face can be, in person. Face-to-face can be over the video call. You're still talking to a person face-to-face, and with a good internet and a basic camera, it's as good as sitting across the table with a person. Okay, super. So telephonic is telephonic. You pick up a phone, you call the person, and you fill up the survey. You ask the questions over the phone and you fill it up. That's all. There's nothing else. There's no this kind of telephonic, that kind of telephonic. There's only a telephonic one method. Let's go to the third method, which is self-filled up survey. So self-filled up, again, there are multiple options. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. You can courier a questionnaire to a person, or you can send it with post in a nice envelope, and you can give them a self-filled, a self-addressed thingy there, so they can, with a stamp, so they can post it back to you. This used to be done quite a bit at one time. You can email a questionnaire to a person as an attachment or in the mail body itself, so that the person can type in the answers and send it back to you. You can fax a questionnaire to a person. Today's generation perhaps has never even used a fax machine. That was time. It was one of the big revolutions, in the world of corporate communications. You take a document, you put it through the fax machine, it comes out on the side looking exactly the same way it is, but it wouldn't come out with a color. It would come out like black and white, and it would come out in those thermal sheets, like you in a petrol pump, you get a certain kind of bill, it'll come out in those kind of sheets, right? So there was time fax used to be a big method of communication. It's a big method of instant communication. I'm talking about before emails became popular. So emails became popular in our country, I would say about 1995, 96, 1997. So we're talking about 27, 28 years ago. Fax machines were probably popular till about 2000 in widespread use. After that, people don't use fax machine. But even today, you will sometimes find, when there's some controversy in a newspaper that's talking about a controversy that some companies got into, they will say this is the alleged etc. A faxed questionnaire to the CEO did not get a response. You'll sometimes find those sentences. There are still organizations which are perhaps using a fax machine, right? Okay, super. The thing to remember here is that online has taken over the world. It is so incredibly easy that the traditional methods they've just dropped out, they've just disappeared. So what are we talking about? We're talking about face-to-face, we're talking about telephonic, we're talking about self-filled up. Within face-to-face, there are 4 or 5 different methods of face-to-face. Within self-filled up, there are 3 or 4 methods of self-filled up. Is this okay so far? And all this I'm talking about quantitative research, mind you. I've not even touched qualitative research. That is a different game altogether. That basically is depth interviews or group discussions and nothing other than that. Let's look at each of these, 8 or 9 individual methods that we've talked about, and let's just briefly look at, the pros and cons or some more detailing about each of these methods. Right, so before that, when we talk about online, you can send a link to a questionnaire. That's how online works. SurveyMonkey, Qualtrics, or a completely customized program. You can send a link to a known customer base. For example, an insurance company may have a few thousand insurance agents who are attached to the company, and they may want to do a survey amongst those agents. So they can, send a link to the questionnaire through WhatsApp or internal whatever communication means they have. You need to know more about this. There's something called access panel. An access panel is a group of people who have agreed to periodically fill surveys online. So they have gone and registered themselves saying, I'm a male, I'm so-and-so age group, I'm some socioeconomic class, and they agree to fill up a survey. And they have been told that if they fill up a survey for 5 minutes, they'll be given this kind of competition. They fill up a survey for 10 minutes, they'll be given this kind of competition. Those kind of systems have been built into it, right? It's something like it's almost like a rate card. It's been built into this system. Access panels exist all over the world. Access panels are used very widely in countries like the US. The use in India, it's there, reasonably widespread, but it's not yet completely mainstream. But it's there, it's reasonably widespread. Digital recruitment is sort of the new happening thing. Here, you can release an ad in Facebook, or you can release an ad in Instagram, or you can even release an ad in LinkedIn maybe, or you can release an ad in a website saying, come, click here, fill up a survey and earn some money. So if there are people who are browsing that particular site or are going through Facebook, if they're interested, if they've got a few minutes to spare, they can click on it. When they click, they'll be led to a page where, there's a basic eligibility questionnaire, which is a screening questionnaire given to them. I mean, checking gender and socioeconomic class and age and so on and so forth. And if they're eligible, they'll be led to the main questionnaire page. And as soon as the questionnaire is done, they'll be given a gift. The gift could be a gift coupon at Amazon, or that can be worked out. The process is substantially automated, right? And as you all know, there are methods that the ad which is released is very carefully targeted at the same age and socioeconomic kind of people that are interested, that we're interested in for the survey. Okay, so far, let's go forward. So let's look at each of these methods that we are talking about. House surveys interviews, as we talked about. That is the traditional method of market research. There was a time all market research studies were done face to face, and almost all market research studies were done house to house. You would have 95% of market research studies being done by sending field teams out. And we used to call it feet on field those days, feet on field. Or we used to call it field investigators. And there has to be rigid norms like, 5 investigators. 5 investigators are controlled by 1 field supervisor. quality control norms. It was a very organized process by itself. It was an organized hierarchy by itself within a market research organization. Even today, it's used to a great extent in India. You will even now find people going around bags and carrying questionnaires and so on and so forth in them. Some of them might even approach to your house. I know for a fact that I can straight away number 4 occasions in my career people have come to my house. It's a long career. It may look like only 4 times people have come, but then we have a big population. We need to keep that in mind as well, right? This technique still works very well for the lower income group households and for the lower middle income group. These kind of income groups are still very welcoming to a stranger. Somebody comes home, knocks the door, they don't set a dog on the stranger, right? They don't say, what are you doing disturbing my privacy? They actually open the door and say, yes, what is it about? Oh, you come for survey. Okay, cool. Why don't you come? Why don't you sit down? So I have been on the field very often in the earlier years of my career. And people have, invariably said, come, sit down. They'll give a glass of water. They'll give a glass of buttermilk if it is summer. They're so hospitable. It is in their nature to be hospitable to a visitor, even if he has just come to ask some questions. And he is not giving them anything in return. It is one-way traffic. It is absolutely free. There is no respondent gift, nothing. And people still cooperate to such a great extent. Right? So the method works. It doesn't work very well for middle income onwards because these are the people who are concerned about security, about privacy, about intrusiveness, etc., etc. These are the people whose compounds are walled off. The watchman won't allow anybody inside. Even a legitimate visitor may not always be allowed inside. Right? So, in middle income, upper middle income, and above, house-to-house field work is virtually impossible. It might still succeed once in a way, but for all practical purposes, the technique doesn't work, and it's a mistake to even contemplate doing it among that socioeconomic class. Right? Okay, so far, shall we go forward? At the respondent's office, very useful for B2B studies. Sorry about that. You can go to a purchase manager or in the office, or you can meet an HR manager or a marketing manager and do a study. It's very useful for B2B. Mall intercept, since we are interviewing for somebody interrupting the shopping activity, interfering in the daily routine. So these interviews need to be very short. Couple of minutes at most. Beyond the person, listen, I have other work to do. I can't stand here, hang around with you, asking you, answering your questions. So I need to go about my work. But the interview itself needs to be extremely short. And it's very difficult to control sampling here. While we can talk rules about systematic random sampling and interview every 10th person who comes to the door, etc., etc. In actual fact, it was very difficult to do. Therefore, and the questionnaire tends to be very short. And therefore, these tend to be called quick and dirty studies. Quick turnaround times. Dirty as in is not very rigorous. It's the process of sampling, the process of analyzing, not analyzing. The process of sampling and asking questions is not particularly rigorous. Therefore, these are called quick and dirty studies. Study itself tends to be compressed into a shorter time period. And tends to give a sample which is only partially representative. Why is it only partially representative? Because not everybody goes to a mall. If you take an age group of say 25 to 55 or even 25 to 35, men or women, even in these segments, there are plenty of people who rarely go to a mall. So if you go to a mall and do the intercept and do the interview, you're likely to catch the people who are per se more frequent visitors to the mall. That is simply the law of probability. So the sample could end up being only partially representative. Street corner surveys are like wall intercept, not used substantially nowadays. There was a time opinion polls used to be done here, political opinion polls. You post people at street corners, catch people who come. Very useful again for middle income and below kind of consumers. They are the ones who are walking in the streets, and they're the ones who generally don't seem to be, oh, I need to be somewhere else in 5 minutes time. They seem to have some time on their hands. So a large number of them will answer questions. Of course, common sense has to apply. You cannot have one, a big thug-looking, dangerous-looking guy approaching a young girl and saying, I want to market as an interview. You have to follow common sense things like it has to be somebody who makes the respondent feel safe, somebody who's polite, presentable, approachable. Those basic common sense rules will always apply in life. We'll go forward. Central location. Believe me, this is by far the best possible method for doing market research. You have called the respondent to a central venue. You have booked his or her time for 20 minutes or half an hour or 40 minutes as the case might be, right? You can get, and you've made them sit comfortably. There could be air conditioning, there could be a fan, there could be a good seat, you can have a cup of coffee, right? This is when the respondent is, physically comfortable and mentally relaxed to really participate in a survey. It allows very detailed questionnaires. It allows high quality probing. It allows just opinion survey. It also allows, testing of a product sample, taste this, taste that, give me feedback. All those things are possible. However, the budget needs to be high because the respondent has to be incentivized to come. Plus, the respondent has to be reimbursed for whatever expenses they're getting. So the cost tends to go higher. But if the budget permits it, this is the method to follow in every single situation. Whenever possible, whenever the budget permits it, go ahead and do central location interviews. Again, we should remember, central location can also be with, the respondent sitting here, the interviewer sitting across the table. Or that can also be over a video call. The respondent could still be in the central location, but the interviewer could be sitting somewhere else and asking the questions. Essentially, we are saying, if you have booked an appointment with the respondent, and stretching this idea a little further, if it is going to be over a video call, then the person need not even come to such a location. If the person is in the comfort of their home, or their office, and you've booked time with them, and you've told them upfront it's going to take 20-25 minutes, then you're going to get good quality interviews. Right? So, what I'm trying to say is that this video call thing has transformed the world. It has actually given us access to great interviewing, irrespective of location. Right? So the in-person traditional method is going out of favor rapidly, but still used it. And there are situations where the client thinks when doing an interview in person, you can observe body language and so on and so forth. Right? That's never the case. The market research field investigator is not trained, is not qualified, is not skilled enough to make judgments of body language. They are supposed to wear blinkers and ask the questions exactly the way they're written in the questionnaire. So there is absolutely no advantage to in-person interviews in quantitative research compared to video call interviews. Whereas video call interviews has several advantages over in-person interviews. Advantage number one being the respondent is comfortable. The respondent can be in a venue or at home or in office. Time is booked. You're not intruding into the person's home, therefore you're not making them feel threatened about their safety, right? And the interviewer is sitting in their respective office, maybe in a good air-conditioned chair and comfortable, and therefore a better quality interviewer can do this work. Also, when the interviewer is going house to house in the field, they can do only maybe 5 interviews in a day because there's also time spent traveling. Whereas the person is doing it on Zoom, they can do 10 interviews in a day because that much time is saved. The person is sitting in one place while he's interviewing one, interviewing the other person, and so on and so forth. So, whenever possible, use video interviews. Okay, super. We talked about telephonic interviews. It is still used very, very widely for short customer satisfaction studies. The constraint is that, it's very useful primarily for short interviews, primarily for B2B studies, right? But very often data connectivity is not good, phone connectivity is not good. It has good quality data collection, but visual stimuli cannot be shown. If you want to show an ad, for example, to the consumer and take feedback, that's not possible in telephonic interviews. So it has to be quick customer satisfaction interviews, for example, right? Or a quick feedback in the interview. That works well for telephonic. So excellent method, but with limited applicability. Within that limited applicability, it's an excellent method. Let's talk about self-field. I've already said you can have a courier. It used to be called a mailer with me. When you send a courier or a post, it's called a mailer. So mailer, emailer, fax, etc. Doable, effective, overtaken by the technology of online. So online is as effective as face-to-face. Remember, in a quantitative interview, the interviewer is not qualified enough to observe body language, or observe variations in tone, or to probe very deeply. He's just following the questions, like I said, with blinkers on. Now, if a human being is following the questionnaire with blinkers on, obviously a machine will do that better than the human being will. Whenever something is completely process driven, whenever something doesn't require any kind of human interaction or mental agility or mental alertness, if the process is completely laid down in terms of steps, then a machine will do that better. And an online survey is, every logic can be built into the online survey. So if the interviewer says, have you ever used this brand? And the respondent says yes, then yes means you should go to this question, no means you should go to that question. This can be done by the interviewer, this can be done by the online. But with the online, it will be done error-free every single time. The interviewer can make a mistake, but the interviewer is a human being. So the interviewer is actually introducing an interface which is not adding any value, really speaking, but is possibly adding errors to the process. So I would really go forward to the point where I say, whenever you require higher quality interviewing, use video calls. Whenever it's like pretty straightforward and very, very structured questionnaires, just go with online. The caveat would be language. If the respondent is not, very articulate in reading and typing responses, then it's better you have an administered interview over video call. The respondent is, it's not just a question of knowing English or knowing Hindi. It's a question of person is educated and used to talking versus used to writing down the thoughts. If people are talking uneducated audience, which is not used to writing down their thoughts on paper, then it's better to interview them and ask some questions.
But isn't a person, when a person does the interview, isn't the personal touch important as compared to...
Not enough. If the person has been recruited to participate in the survey, and they've been given assurances of confidentiality and safety and so on and so forth, I don't think personal touch matters beyond that. Because the survey process itself has to be completely mechanized. The personal touch should not lead the respondent to give a more positive picture, for example. In fact, I would argue against personal touch for the quantitative study. I would say make it as impersonal, as mechanical as possible. So where the respondent is able to articulate the thoughts in writing, has the capacity to think and put down the thoughts on paper, then online survey is as good as an interview-administered survey. Where the respondent is not able to do that, then an interview-administered survey is better. An interview-administered survey is always better if it's done over a video call, because you've got comfort on both sides, you've got safety on both sides, and you can share visual stimuli, everything. As internet keeps improving, the quality of this kind of work will only keep improving, and our options will only improve. Right? Is it okay so far?
Yes.
So this is how data collection works. Now, qualitative research is completely different. But basically, this is how data collection works. Now, we'll just talk briefly about access panels. So, online forms can be sent to a set of known customers after first intimating them that a survey is going to happen. This can happen through WhatsApp, through email, SMS, whatever, doesn't matter. Access panels is when people have signed up and agreed. So they can no longer protest saying my privacy has been invaded, because they have agreed saying yes, I will fill up surveys. Now they can limit it. They can say I'll fill up 8 surveys in a year, or 12 surveys in a year, or 2 surveys in a month. And then you can't exceed that. So not all the people in the access, they have also shared the contact, the demographic details upfront. So you can select which particular subset of your panel you want to send the survey to. so that your target group eligibility is taken care of. Access panel cuts the cost of research surveys, because since they respond to filling up several surveys in a year, the incentive that they have to be paid is a little lower. It becomes more manageable. So, commercially speaking, access panels are quite effective, but then they're tough to set up. And for an access panel to give you a representative, the challenge here is being a representative sample. So for it to be a representative sample, it needs to be a really large panel. If it's a small panel, there's a danger that you've only taken those people who don't have too much to do otherwise, who are just free to sit around and answer questionnaires. Therefore, the sample may not be representative. The same concern with digital ads. There's a danger that our sample is only partially representative, because these are people who are very active, say Facebook or say LinkedIn, and to have the time to explore, are there survey making opportunities, money making survey opportunities. And the danger is also that certain people may say, hey, I can get 200 rupees here, 100 rupees there. Whenever I have half an hour free, which is go and fill up a survey somewhere. That almost takes it into the realm of quick and dirty research. Because once you say that a sample is only partially representative, once you're not 100% sure that a sample is completely representative, then essentially a compromise can trigger. And that means you cannot say with confidence that the study is as rigorous as it should be. So it sort of falls into the realm of quick and dirty research. Are we okay with this topic so far? Can we close this here? Right? Okay. Thank you.